Welcome to my studio. I'm Cedar Keshet and I'm an oil painter. I've been making art my whole life. I'd like you to come have a little studio tour and learn a little something about me. I started making art officially when I was 5 years old. I took a museum class for sketching with children. It was like really great. I remember it so clearly even to this day. In high school, I used to do some plein air sketching on the back of my horse because I could carry my sketchbook pretty easily in the saddlebag. And I would just get off or sit on top of my horse if he was behaving, and I'd sketch whatever I saw. It was just great. I didn't know it was plein air then. When I got out of high school, I began plein air painting with friends, and that's when I learned more about plein air. I've been doing it for a long time. I got my BFA in 1999 in graphic design and sculpture, and I also painted in watercolor and acrylic. I started painting in oils in 2014, and well, I found my medium there. I just really love it. I like to go out plein air painting, and that just means that you're outside. You take your gear, as you can see, got the backpack, right? Load it up, put my gear in it, and go out and paint. I go out as much as I can. If it's like too hot, I don't, or if it's wet, like raining, no, oil and water don't mix. So I come into the studio, and that's where I'll take those little paintings I've done, plus any sketches I've done while on site, and my photographs. I put them all together, and then I'll make a studio painting. You know, I'm here like from 9 to 5 days a week, sometimes a little more. And then in evenings, I do marketing, and I do that a couple, maybe 3 days a week, depending on what I need. Creating is my passion. I love it. So I'm really excited that you're here. You're going to see a few things about my studio, and I hope you really enjoy it. If you have any questions, feel free to go to my website and email me. I'm also on Instagram. You can message me there at Plein Air Cedar. Thank you. During this virtual studio tour, I'm going to show you the different parts of my studio. It is a small space, and I do have concentrated sections in which I do different things. So one of the parts of my studio that I'm really appreciative of is my sink. Now I know normally you don't get really excited about an old kind of nasty dirty sink, but I love my sink. It has cold running water. So in the winter time in Colorado, yeah, that makes it kind of tough, but it's a lot better than having to go in the house and go into the kitchen and use the sink there. I also have a lot of masks in my studio. I wear them, of course, when I'm going to go out in public, but I wear them in case I'm using some spray paint to fix a damaged frame, which happens all the time, or if I'm using spray fixative when I sketch, that holds the charcoal and the pencil in place and keeps it from getting smudged. And then when I'm done with the painting and it's dry, a lot of times my varnish will be spray varnish, although I use brushes, those brushes I love, to brush on varnish too. So I do have different kinds of masks to wear and protect my lungs because I don't want to be inhaling any of that. So let's continue on with our studio tour, and let's go to another part. In 2018, I spent a summer plein air painting at a number of BLM, which is Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service, and private land parcels that were up for oil and gas exploitation. I created an exhibit I called Tree Hugging Cowgirl, which is me, and I had that exhibit to share these paintings that I did, plus studio ones, and educate the public of the issues that were around it. I also raised money for my local conservation center. I paint to document the land I love with the people, livestock, and wildlife that are in it. I want to share my passion and my connectedness for this place that I love with other people, with other folks, with you guys. I want you to enjoy it through my art and also hopefully feel the sense of connectedness that I feel, and you as well might feel a tiny bit or even more connected to this place just by viewing my art, and encourage you to advocate for it as well, or at the very least to just enjoy the art. This is my plein air corner where I have all my plein air stuff from my pack to all my other gear. This is my little box of paints, little sketch pad, closed it up really nice and convenient. Got my camera, which is always important. Brushes in their holder, which I just hang off of my pochade box. The pochade box is basically an easel and a palette combination, and I've got a couple of those. Other things that you might need in the summer, like bug spray, or in the winter, things to keep warm, because it can get a little cold out there, but it's usually pretty great. I also want to tell you about my passion that I feel for my art. I just love it so much. I also am equally passionate about my subjects. Mostly my subjects are in the Western United States. I paint the landscapes with their critters and people and other parts to document how I feel. And I feel so much love and respect for nature and where I'm painting that I really want to share that with you, the viewer of my paintings. I also want to be an advocate for this place. I paint to raise awareness of the environmental and social issues of the West. For example, No Public Access is the name of a painting I did to raise awareness of encroachment on our public lands by private companies. This is a display at the Paonia Public Library, and you can see it there. It's a benefit for the Western Slope Conservation Center, and I also have it on my website. I partook in an exhibit called Our Planet, and it was an artist's view on the state of climate change and what our planet is going through. I chose to do 2 coal mine damage paintings from the coal mines in the area where I live. It's not an easy subject to paint, but I thought that it really helped raise awareness because comments I heard said that they didn't even know that there were coal mines in Colorado from people who lived on the Front Range in the Denver area. So painting is a passion. This is my taboret, which is an art word for a table that I put my palette on. I also have my brush cleaner, which is odorless mineral solvent to keep my brushes clean. And that brings us to brushes. Hi, brushes. I love my brushes. I have an assortment of all kinds of brushes. I like that because I can get different textures, which makes my painting really interesting. Some of my favorite brushes are these rosemary brushes, these are the ivory long flat variety. I don't know what it is about them, but I just really like this kind of brush. Although I really do just love brushes of any kind. I don't know what it is. I just love brushes. Just so you don't think that I'm biased and have a prejudice toward oil painting brushes, I don't. I love any kind of brushes. These are some acrylic brushes I have. I have some more put away too. These are some of my watercolor brushes. Oh, look at these lovely brushes in here. I also have Sumi-e ink brushes for Japanese style Sumi-e ink painting. And, of course, assorted brushes. These are house painting brushes, but they're really useful for other things like putting on varnish and just getting really interesting texture. Like I said, I love brushes. I have a lot of oil paints. This is my plein air kit I take when I'm going out plein air painting in the field. I don't have every color with me, but I have enough colors that I can mix every color. I keep a lot of my paint in this tackle box. There's nothing about fish in here, just large tubes of paint, and then I also use smaller tubes of paint. I really love oil painting. I paint on different surfaces. For example, this is a stretched cotton canvas. These are wooden stretcher bars, both here that you can see the wood and then covered with canvas. It's stretched really tight, stapled in place, and it's a real nice surface to paint on. This one is covered with some gesso, so that makes it readily acceptable to paint and it helps the paint adhere to the canvas. I also paint on cradled boards. You can hear it's wooden, again, primed with gesso to make it ready to accept the paint. I use those kind of surfaces when I'm in the studio just because they're kind of hard to schlep around. When I'm out plein air painting, I usually take panels. This is an example of a linen panel. It's primed linen material that's stretched over a high density board. Really nice and portable. And I also paint on occasion on these wooden boards. Nice thin wood boards that have, this one's cotton adhered to it, and again it's primed with gesso to make it ready so I can paint on it. I like these panels. They're nice and thin, they fit in wet panel carriers, and I can take them plein air painting. You're with me in my sketching nook. This is where I do a lot of my sketching. I have pen and ink drawings, pencil drawings. Here I did a little pencil on canvas. Here is a sketchbook that's got a few thumbnail drawings on it that I've done in ink. I've got charcoals, rather, show you these. These are vine charcoal. They're really nice to do a big charcoal drawing. I've got charcoal pencils, which are a little cleaner, but not as much fun. I've got a whole assortment of different kinds of pencils that I use, and then a variety of pens that I use for my drawings. This is where I really spend some time working out the visual components of my paintings, as well as just sketching, because it really helps me with painting, and I love it. Sketching's great. So thanks for visiting here in this little nook. This is how I would basically set up my painting area. I have my taboret. I've got an easel with some small studies of my models on it. Got my sketch pad clamped onto my big easel with a big painting that's got a layout started of the painting. The underpainting's just in the very beginning stages. I've got my computer and a big monitor that I can put my photographs of my subject on. And I would do a painting here. All of my equipment is on wheels, so I can move it around because in my studio I've got a variety of lighting situations. I've got a couple of solar tubes which let a lot of light in. I've got windows on all sides. A lot of times I like to have north light coming in, so everything's on wheels that I can move around. I can also set up still lifes if I want to. I've got a couple carts that I can use to put still lifes on, and also a table I can set it on. So this is what my painting area looks like when I start painting. I try to document how the West really is, whether it's a painting that I've done of my neighbor who's a hay farmer on his ATV holding another neighbor's horse because they are gathering their cattle, or if it's just a beautiful landscape. I just love it so much, and I hope that you feel that coming through in my artwork. Being an artist means really being informed about my craft. So I spend some time in my studio in what I call my library. I know it looks kind of small because it really is. I have an old rocking chair and I've got all kinds of art books. I've got some of my favorite books here that I'm always going through and reading. They're great reference books. I have books that I go through that are just great for inspiration and looking at other paintings that I just love to sit here when I just don't feel like painting, whatever the reason is. I just sit down and go through some of the books in my library and poof, I'm inspired again. I don't know how that happens. It's just I'm really lucky. It happens. It's just such a passionate thing of mine. And of course, my house has a lot of art books in it too. But these are the ones I keep here that I'm always going back to for reference and guidance. I call this part of my studio my frame shop. It's because it's full of frames. In here are all different frames waiting to get paintings in them. These are some tiny frames. I've got everything in plastic to keep it clean and in good shape. Down here are boxes and boxes filled with frames that are ready to get framed with paintings put in them. This isn't all the frames I have, just like brushes. I have a lot. I have some other shelves that have even bigger frames for larger paintings. But basically, this is the framing department. I've got my framing supplies over here. I can pretty much frame any kind of oil painting I want. Welcome to my shipping department. This is where I have most of my shipping supplies. Once a painting is done and dry and it's sold and going to its patron, it needs to get there, right? So I've got a lot of boxes of different size. Up on top of all my storage, I've got really big boxes. These are boxes that I get for art supplies delivery. I really believe in recycling, so I reuse them that way. Got small boxes here for smaller paintings. Of course, I've got packing tape and some wrapping plastic to make sure any paintings that are going out are really secure. Mailing labels, you need those. Different sizes of bubble wrap and foam, and I really reuse a lot of packing materials that I get in, like pieces of styrofoam, just to make sure that when someone buys a painting from me, that it gets there in good shape. So I've got to have a shipping department, and you've just had a tour of it. Thanks. Please visit my online gallery, which is my website, at cedarkeshet.com for a virtual look at my paintings. See me at Plein Air Cedar on Instagram for day-to-day painting adventures. Because of my community mindfulness, I'm exhibiting only online at this time. I am positive that I will be back in galleries and other art venues in the future. Enjoy my paintings, and thank you so very much for spending your time getting to know me.